I'm going down with the ship if Texas goes down. If they annex, peace out. What's y'all's favorite kind of dogs?
HotnCole en español. Yo! It's HotnCole.
It's a family-friendly podcast.
So last time I got to tell you, I shared one of the photos of us doing this. And I had a number of friends that asked me about the Mo posters in the background.
Yeah!
And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Dude, that makes me happy, man. I'm a big Mo fan.
I had a fair number of friends that were like, I never would have thought Matt would have been on a podcast where they had Mo posters in the background.
That's a little stretch. I mean, you know, Mo's, they're not like super popular, but they're more of a cult band. You know, they have a legit following and everything.
Oh man. So what have you been up to? You run it all by yourself now, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Let's roll with it, man. There's no. Make sure you sound good. Yeah, boy. Make sure you sound good.
All right. You hear me?
Yeah, so let's roll with it.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. Axel, you know, he is a intern from Dubisky, and school was out. So during quarantine, he came in once or twice and helped out. That was good. He's a good kid, real smart, and but it's just tough to get him in, and the scheduling is tough. You know, that's the thing is like I want to be ready to roll.
Right. Yeah.
And actually, I planned on doing this at my house originally. But Dubisky can't send
I can see. Yeah.
an intern to personal residence.
Right.
And so I'd move back if I needed. However, if I'm still here, here in a few months, they'll give me another intern. Now the intern program may be different now,
Sure.
It's just all kinds of craziness going on.
Well, is he still local? I mean,
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
And today I think he'd do it for free.
Yeah.
But I don't think he'd do it regularly for free. And look, this is all an expense. I'm not making any money doing this. And I rent this room. I pay for editing software, so it's actually
right.
A running expense to do this, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, I have a blast and posting it, and you do a little veteran suicide awareness. Well, a classmate of mine, Misty Diaz is her name. She was the 25th episode, but she's a doctor, and she's getting her doctorate.
Okay.
And her thesis is suicide awareness.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
We got into it. She's like breaking me down, dude. Like it was serious, man. And I was like, and then my mom, whatever.
Man, I'll have to listen to that episode.
Please do. Yeah. So it's up, number 25, quarter century episode, which is quite encouraging to me.
Yeah.
Like I
What
feel
episode are we on now?
This will be, if I get this out, we're 27.
27. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think I was like the
fifth.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I was trying to record 2 or 3 times a week.
Right.
And I'm okay with once a week. Thing is, I don't have my next. I don't have the next deal planned.
We'll find you some. We'll find you some folks. There's a lot of people out here, and in fact, this morning I was talking with some of my veteran buddies, and we were talking about, man, we should do our own podcast.
Yeah.
And so, we were kind of tossing around what that looks like, and that kind of thing.
So, you have this available.
Yeah,
honestly.
I told him. Yeah, I told him.
I know it's maybe not centrally located for you guys or whatever.
I mean, I think we're gonna. Figure out kind of what we want to do and what our messaging is going to be about and all that kind of stuff, right? But
so like with mine, it's just like conversation, having fun, right? Which means I don't fit into a category, which means I don't get, like if a person wants to listen to a podcast, they'll listen to something about X, like barbecue or a book or whatever, or mine's just so general. I'm going for the whole audience, not
Yeah.
a specific category.
But I mean, you're kind of localized to North Texas, right?
Sure.
So it's certainly
Sure.
a kind of a
And and a lot of my guests are not Grand Prairie. Like you're in Plano.
Yeah.
And so,
Allen.
Sorry, I thought you were Plano for some reason.
Just on the border, but I want to make sure I give my Allen community
Allen
props.
folks.
Yeah.
Well done.
Shout out.
You were over at Rodney's house?
I was, yeah. So when I venture down south down here, I always try to go see him, and longtime friends, right?
Oh, yeah.
Rodney Anderson, and so he's a good guy, and I would just try to check in and see how his life is going. He's doing good.
He does the GOP chair or something like that?
Yeah, so he's the Dallas County GOP chair.
That would make sense, like going from his background.
Yeah, so he's got that and like 3 or 4 other businesses he's working
Is
on
he
now.
really?
Yeah.
Title, right?
Yeah, so he does Title. He's doing some stuff with like genetic laboratory like blood drawing and stuff.
Okay.
And so I just learned about that literally a few minutes ago.
That takes an entrepreneurial spirit. You start getting into things like that. And
yeah.
So I hope he does well. What about you, man? I know you've hiked a few times.
Yeah,
Last time we talked was pre-COVID.
Yeah, so crazy how this world has changed, right? We talked. It must have been like second week of February or something, I think.
Yeah. Wow.
Who would have thought that this world would be where we are right now, right?
Not at all.
So we, originally were planning to go to Kilimanjaro. We kept that dream alive up and through, maybe May. I think May
Really?
is when we were finally like, okay, this is not
going to happen.
We can't make it happen.
What made you decide? Travel restrictions or?
Yeah, I think it was mostly travel. It became super complicated to try and get over to Africa in a way in which didn't end up in us being quarantined at some point in the journey.
Right.
And so, suddenly you start taking a week-long trip, suddenly turns into a 2-month, a month out of the world. And so, add on to that the fact that, the economic instability of that region probably wasn't the greatest to go in there and travel, right? And
is that South Africa?
So it's kind of, I guess it's on the, like, where Madagascar is, it's like right outside of that, like of that island. So it's kind of mid-Africa on the coastline. And so
I've heard, you hear the term Madagascar. I don't know why that's popular, not because of the show, but I actually read a book. It was a fiction book, but about the treasure hunting.
Oh, yeah.
In the bays between South Africa and Madagascar.
Yeah, so we were supposed to go, but it just probably it just wasn't right.
Yeah.
And I think that traveling with that many people, trying to get over there, trying to keep everybody together, it became too big of a logistical challenge for us.
What was the original date?
So originally we were supposed to be in Africa the first week of June.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I get that.
And so it was May,
we are in almost August.
Yeah, that we finally were like, okay. But, veterans adapt and overcome, right? And so we quickly pivoted to this new idea of, well, let's just go summit the top 3 mountains in the region.
Okay.
And so we had already done, I think last time when we talked, we had just finished Guadalupe Peak.
Guadalupe Peak, yeah.
And so, which was a ton of fun. And then in June, we did Mount Wheeler, which is in New Mexico, just outside
Mount Wheeler. Okay.
Yeah, in New Mexico, just outside of Taos. It's around 13,000 feet. Super good hike. In June, I'll tell you the most interesting thing to me was that it was still a ton of snow up there.
Really?
Like,
I forget that ski territory.
Slipping and sliding in snow all the way up the mountain.
Did you know that going into it, I guess? Or you found out that you need to dress for it? I mean, what was
we kind of knew it was going to be cold. I did not anticipate that much snow.
And it's snow. We're thinking it's freezing, but it's not, right? I mean,
it was cold. The wind was super strong.
Yeah.
But we didn't have any kind of special cold weather gear or anything. I wasn't wearing anything special. I had a kind of like a rain jacket on just to break up the wind.
Right, when you're hiking, your blood's flowing and
it gets hot super fast. Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit about that. I mean, so what was the kind of the round trip? I mean, how long did you walk? How long did it take?
So I actually flew into New Mexico.
Wow.
So I took half of us drove, some of us flew. I will say this, plug for the airlines, best flying experience I'd had.
Really?
You know,
because there was less people.
There was less people. We were pretty spread out. You know, the airports were great. We had no.
Were you wearing a mask on the plane?
I was, yeah. So I wore a mask on the plane.
Required or your choice?
I think it was required.
Yeah.
I know it was required to get on the plane, and I think pretty much everybody just kept it on.
Yeah.
And so
I guess once you're sitting, they're not making you wear it.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, like I said, I think I saw maybe one person didn't wear one, like once we were seated, but pretty much everybody had it on the entire time. And so landed, drove out to Taos, which was, about 2 hours from the airport.
Did y'all rent a car?
Yeah, rented a car. Rented a.
How many people?
So it was me and one other person flew, and then we had probably 10 others there that kind of sporadically drove yeah, and so
mostly from DFW.
Mostly from Texas, let's say that.
That's easier. Okay.
Yeah, we had probably half of us from DFW. We had maybe a third or so from the Austin area.
I was gonna guess Austin area.
Austin, and then we had a couple from Houston.
Tell me,
so
real fast.
Yeah.
What's the name of the organization again?
The Warriors
Keep.
The
Warriors Keep.
Yeah.
I kept telling somebody today, Wounded Warrior. I'm like, that's not. I told them that's not. And I can't. Anyway, Warriors Keep.
Yeah, the Warriors Keep. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we got out there. I don't think we did an acclimation hike that. Well, I guess maybe we did. So we got out there kind of a day earlier. So, kind of just got set up.
Yeah.
And got the campground set up and everything. Started super early in the morning. Probably.
So y'all camped.
Yeah. So we camped, stayed in tents. It was great. I had an amazing time. Actually, I guess we did do a kind of a pre-hike the day before, just kind of open the lungs up a little bit because we're all at elevation, right? And so,
I think about that.
We probably went on that day, on the first day, probably to 11,000 feet.
Wow.
So coming from
how high is Guadalupe?
Guadalupe is 8,700.
Yeah, so you're already.
So we're already well above that.
Your highest peak, yeah.
And Dallas, I think, is somewhere between 600 and 800.
Yeah, right.
So not very high at all. But yeah, so we got in a day early, did kind of just a stretch out the legs and lungs, open the lungs up a little bit, hike, went back, slept, and then got up super early the next morning and started up the mountain.
Yeah. And then so you start up the mountain in the morning. When are you hitting peak?
Yeah, so it took us, it was about, I want to say like 4-ish miles to the peak.
Okay.
And so we probably took us a couple, maybe 3 or 4 hours to get up there. We kind of took our time.
Yeah.
And, didn't go too fast. The
10
weather,
to 15 people, you said?
Yeah, the weather was a little sketchy at times.
Yeah.
Up there on the mountain, the weather can change
wow.
pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
Drastically. I'll send you some videos. But you're like literally on the peak and you're watching the storm, like you're in the cloud as it's going, over you.
Yeah, golly.
And it just happens before you know it. You're like, what? We're in the middle of a storm, and
cumulus cloud.
Yeah, and so we hiked up. Took us a few hours. What was really cool is that we ended up running into another veteran, wasn't a part of the organization.
Yeah.
From Texas.
Super
Saw
cool.
us. We ended up summiting about the same time.
Oh, wow.
And so, what's even cooler about this story is that, so we met him. He lives in El Paso. I became Facebook friends with him. A couple of us did. And then he ended up going on the next mountain with us.
Really?
We were like, hey, man, come on. Like, let's
then like another trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. You exchange information.
Yeah. We got them hooked up. We told them when we were gonna go do a mountain in Colorado the next month.
I kind of feel like that alone made it all worth it, right? Like,
yeah. I mean,
some dude out hiking by himself. Now is with a group of his.
Now knows about us. We had a great time with him, and so. Yeah, so we got done with Wheeler. It took us a couple hours. It was a little over 13,000 feet. It was a challenge, but I wouldn't say it was a super hard challenge for me.
So when I told you about the hike in Costa Rica on our last deal, and that's what I always compare to, because that one was, in my opinion, incredibly difficult. And the reason I say it's difficult is because I don't recall there being anything level or even down. Like it was all uphill, and it was every step was taking a step. I mean, sometimes it wasn't as much uphill, and sometimes it leveled out like a little bit, right? And so that's where I try to compare. And I was not in shape then, so it was just. I mean, I was rough. I got a picture of me sleeping on this coffee plantation owner's like porch with that tile, and it's all cool. The tile is real light, and I'm just laying down, it just out. Anyway, that's what I'm trying to think about is I mean, are you going uphill for that long?
Yeah,
or
so
are you kind of
that one was pretty. I mean, it was steep at times. There was some what you call scrambling, where you're not really on a trail. You're kind of on kind of boulders, of like going up. But it wasn't, and it was steep. It was pretty vertical, but now in
like switchbacks too, or was it all trail?
A lot of switchbacks.
Okay, wow.
So yeah, I mean, once you got above the kind of, they all start real slow. And so like I'm a math guy, so I'm like checking my watch, going, why aren't we gaining elevation? Every step I want to be going up, right?
Yeah.
And so with about 2.5 hours in, I look down at my watch and I'm like, man, we still got 2,000 feet to climb. Like we gotta like where's the uphill? And so, and then sure enough we get above the tree line and it's just straight. It's just crazy. And so but it also wasn't, I mean, the most, I thought the hardest part was that we were kind of walking in a kind of like a gravel kind of a pit, so to speak. So it wasn't like a compact trail versus you're just kind of walking on rocks. And you don't necessarily.
Was that brought in or was that already there?
No, that's just there. That's just on the mountain.
That's pretty cool.
Just kind of these big, huge kind of boulders that you're kind of walking on and balancing on.
I'm sorry, when you said gravel.
Yeah, I mean like big chunks of like granite.
Wow.
Yeah, and so you don't realize when you're walking on that how taxing that is on your calf muscles, because you're balancing. I mean, your body
is
creating
stabilization.
And so you walk on that for half a mile, and then suddenly your legs don't want to move anymore because they're just so exhausted.
Oh gosh.
And so
I'll never forget. We hiked Half Dome, and I was a little bit more in shape this time. But we're doing switchbacks, and I'm just gonna say halfway. I don't know where it was, but I couldn't do it anymore. My brother's a military guy, and he's like he's very good on his PT. He's an office jockey, but he does his PT. And so he's like, all right, we'll sit down. So we sit down. I'll never forget, because it was the greatest peanut butter and honey sandwich I've ever eaten in my life. We packed them before. I was like, I need that sandwich. And I'm just like, it's like gold.
Gold for sure.
Pretty cool.
And so, so we get done with that. I flew back. We had about a month break. And then, that mountain was not super hard, but definitely challenging enough, particularly post-COVID or during COVID, because I hadn't been working out as much as I wanted. The gyms were closed. And I kind of walked into that mountain with I felt unprepared. And I did okay, but I was definitely also could see versus like Guadalupe Peak, where I was in much better shape. And then right after Guadalupe Peak, I did a 31-mile continuous hike.
Oh yeah, I remember you talking. Yeah, down in Round Rock or Austin area.
Yeah, Georgetown area. Did a 31-mile hike, and I left that one feeling great. Like top of the world, was not sore or anything, and so I was in where I felt really good shape back then to coming out of, COVID, going to our first mountain, and I was suddenly right back almost at square one where I felt like I wasn't in good shape. And so I spent kind of the next month really focusing on getting some miles in and getting my legs kind of more prepared to carry that weight. Because our next mountain was Mount Elbert.
Okay. Got multiple things there. Yeah. So your workout you were talking about doing the Stairmaster a lot, and that was really helping. So was that helpful? Did you do that similar, or were you doing other types of hikes?
Yeah, so, once the gym kind of reopened in May, it was all Stairmaster all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Good job.
It was 100%, my gym was open for hour increments, and you could reserve an hour.
Okay.
And so I just went in for that hour, and I did the stairs for the entire hour.
No way.
And so just trying to get my legs and my heart rate back up.
That's I think that's the best, any type of leg exercise you can do. I mean, forget the arms, forget the chest. I mean, if you can keep your legs, I feel like they're just the most healthy workout.
Yeah. I mean, it was, and that really kind of helped, at least both mentally help, because, at the end it'll tell you like you climbed X feet.
Okay.
And you're like, okay, well, I just did 1,700 feet in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
An average day on the mountain is, 2,000 to 3,000 feet, and you're doing that over, a long period of time. So I'm feeling, like my legs are going to be able to handle the elevation climb a little bit better. And so that went really well. I really kind of focused on that for that month of trying to get my legs and in my body kind of back in that better shape, because the next mountain was a lot higher than the one we had even just done, almost 1,000 feet higher.
Wow. So what about the people who went hiking with you? Now, are these the same group as Guadalupe Peak?
Yeah.
And part of the Kilimanjaro thing, I feel like you were going to bring another veteran or somebody who am I even close here to where maybe some of that's not involved with your group, or the fundraising was going towards?
So we were it was the same group that did Guadalupe Peak for the most part. We've had, due to COVID and some other stuff, some folks had to drop off from work and, some of those things. But for the most part, it was the same group. We did raise, a fair amount of money prior to, and then some. And we kind of shut down, I guess I should say, we shut down kind of fundraising when COVID started. It just wasn't the right time.
I agree.
We wanted to really make sure that we were doing, right by the folks that were kind of hurting through this process. And so it just didn't feel right.
Yeah, that's the best part is now going forward, whenever things start easing up, whatever that means. You will be able to continue that fundraising and still bring guys out.
I think one of the great things, not to pivot too much here, but one of the, if you have to look for a silver lining in COVID, I really think part of it is that it's really gotten people back outdoors a little bit more. People are starting to, if you go, any trail, I'm sure this is true in Grand Prairie. I know it's true up in the Collin County area. You go hit a trail on a Saturday morning, it's crowded. Yeah. It's almost too crowded. You know, there's just a lot of people getting outdoors.
Even in the Texas heat, right?
Yeah. Getting outdoors and enjoying the parks and nature and those kinds of things. And so I think that's been if you want to find a silver lining in COVID, that's certainly been it.
Yeah. A lot of people look for those silver linings, me included. And I think, there's more than that, but I've seen folks just get outside their house.
Yeah,
man.
I mean,
they're forced to. Even when they might be asked not to, right? It's still gonna be like
people are kind of okay, I can't go do what I normally would have done, but I can go to a park, and so let me just get outdoors. And so we've really, it's been great for, I think, me and the organization in general, Warriors Keep, to see folks starting to realize what we already knew and the impacts nature has on our kind of mental health and our stability. And so that's been a great kind of lesson, and hopefully we carry that going forward post-COVID. And so
so what was this next mountain again?
So Mount Elbert, which is
Albert.
Elbert.
Elbert, yeah.
E-L. Is the second tallest mountain in the continental U.S.
Okay.
So
where's that at?
It's in Colorado, just maybe about hour and a half outside of Denver.
So is Elbert the highest in Colorado?
It is, yeah.
Cool.
It's the highest
Very
in
cool.
Colorado. It's 14,440.
Wow.
And you kind of told your story about the Costa Rica mountain that was straight up. This was straight up.
Really?
Like just straight, constantly straight up. It was
every foot forward is a lift.
And so we started out again, as we always do, super early in the morning there. And then it was crowded. One thing I will say is that there at no point on this mountain did I ever feel like I wasn't near somebody. Like I wasn't within, oh my God, I'm gonna fall, yelling that someone could come get me.
Sure.
Right. And so
and that includes outside of your group, right?
Right. Yeah, that includes outside of the group. Like we're just always with people. So that's kind of nice because it's also a self-motivation thing. You're helping each other out.
Yep.
And so we started at 5 a.m. that day climbing, and then I think I hit the peak at 11.
Wow.
So it took
solid
me
6 hours.
Yeah, it took me a little bit longer than some of the other folks. In the last, I would say the last half a mile, which was, we were above 14,000 feet, just every step was taxing.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't breathe, and you were just, your legs were so tired. And so, but, the guy that we met at Wheeler joined us for this hike. He came up, the veteran we met out there, and so got a chance to get to know him a little bit better.
Good.
And but that mountain was something else.
Yeah,
and
man. Are we snowing like Wheeler, or is it not?
Nope, no snow.
But weather was probably
perfect.
Yeah, perfect hiking weather where it's cold to cool down your hot body, right?
I mean, it was almost maybe even too hot. So I was wearing, shorts.
When was this?
July, the second week of July.
Wow. Here in Texas, of course, it was
it was
brutal.
Yeah, it was probably, 80, 90 degrees.
That's hot for hiking,
and
especially in the mountains.
But it was, not a cloud in sight, which was great. Like I kind of told you about Wheeler, storms can roll in and out really quickly out there. And so we didn't have that problem. So that was great. But, it was just it was a beating is what I would say. So the mountain is nicknamed the Gentle Giant. And
really?
I would tell you it was not gentle in any sense of the word.
Sure. And so it sounds like as tough as it is, everybody wants to hike it still, though, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a
Coloradoans.
Yeah, I think it's an accomplishment. It's like a rite of passage. It's probably one of the easier 14,000 footers, 14ers. Yeah. But it's also a huge mental challenge because it's a mountain that has multiple false summits. So you see the top, or what you think is the top, and you're like, okay, I just need to get to there. And then you get there, and you're like, wait a minute, no, it's
There's
up there.
The top one.
Oh, okay, hang on, I just need to get to there.
There we go.
Oh, wait, nope, it just never ended. And so...
of course, the shorter goals, right? Get you there. Okay,
but it's just, I mean, I'll show you some pictures. Maybe we can put them in the video later. But of just, it looks like if you were looking at the picture, and I promise you this is not the case, it looks like I'm tilting the camera up. Yeah. I'm not.
Really?
I'm not. It's just that vertical.
Wow.
And so and again, we started that hike at 10,000 feet. And we climbed over 14.
You said, so the peak was at 11?
No, so the peak for Elbert is 14,000.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, time. Yeah.
Time?
Yeah.
So 6 hours.
So, yeah.
To the peak.
Yeah. And I did it slow.
The one we did in Costa Rica, I want to say, and I'm not trying to top when I say this, but I think I want to say it was 8 hours. Mm-hmm. And it was like about that last half mile, there's like trucks going up because we're going up in the mountains where there's small little villages.
Yeah.
And we ended up hitching a ride at 30. I think I was 30. my hip was hurting.
Yeah, I mean,
I was like, man, just the kind of that rotation, I guess.
Yep.
And please understand, it's 8 hours of Stairmaster type thing,
Yeah.
right? But I kind of felt like an old man for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and so
like you said, it was taxing. Every
Right.
step was like brutal, and I couldn't quite figure out how much further I needed to go, and I kind of wish I wouldn't have hopped on that truck because it was only a mile.
Yeah.
And a mile may have been too long, but when I hopped in the truck and went that mile, I was like, oh man, we were almost here.
Sure, yeah. No, so we, it was, yeah, it was a very, very taxing thing. And a lot of people don't realize, so we slept at 10,000 feet, which is still from, a Texas boy, right?
Yeah,
That's high.
10,000 feet above where you're
Yeah.
9,200.
When I woke up that morning, I was already having some altitude sickness before
Really?
we even started the hike.
What's altitude sickness?
So like my head hurt. I had a really bad headache.
That's what happened.
My stomach was hurting.
I hear that's more like dehydration.
So yeah, so they tell you to drink a lot of water.
A lot of water.
And unfortunately, I didn't necessarily heed that advice this time.
Wow.
Or I didn't adequately. So before Wheeler, a week before, I was just drinking water nonstop. I didn't, for whatever reason, I can't remember why, but I didn't do it this time.
Yeah.
And so when I woke up...
You're good, right?
Yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. But so when I woke up that morning, I had in my mind already rationalized I'm not going to make it to the top.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, I don't feel good. I don't even want to go, but all my buddies are here. I'm not going to be the one that lays in the tent while they all go climb this mountain. I'm going to at least put a couple feet, in front of the other, and we'll see what happens. And so we were climbing, and, before you know it, I'm like, man, I'm starting to feel a little bit better, probably just because I've been moving and probably just blocked it out of my mind. But then it was okay, well, I'm almost there. I'm not going to turn around now, right? I just got to get to the top of this mountain.
A little bit further.
Okay, then it was the top of that one. And so it took me a while. I was, probably an hour behind most of our group
No way.
So. But it was, I like to tell folks everyone experiences the mountain in their own way, in their own time. And
so I'm glad that happened because that makes this unique and also a learning experience. I mean, that's what this is all about. One, it gets, we want, you're outside of hiking, you're promoting, getting these veterans outside back to nature and helping to heal. But two, this mental game you play with yourself and the challenge, like you just said, you didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
You flew out there, you'd hiked many a times before, and you woke up that morning like, I don't want to do this. And like you said, you just, all right, you reluctantly did it.
I mean, it really was.
And this is the more challenging hike, all uphill. So not only are you reluctant to even start it, you're getting your butt kicked immediately, right?
Yeah. I mean, it really was. I mean, it was the perfect way, I think, to kind of show that of, I didn't want to do it. Okay, well, we'll just start and we'll see what happens. I'll just put a couple feet in front of the other. And if I start getting sick or I get tired,
the resilience.
Okay. At least I tried, right?
Yeah,
at least
resilience.
I did the first step. And then, we just kind of got to going. And then before you know it, you're like, okay, well, let me just keep going a little bit further.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, I don't want to overstate it or understate it, but it was brutal. It was the hardest hike I've ever done.
So you did not do a pre-hike?
So we did the day, the day before, we did kind of a short one.
Yeah. Same path or just kind of getting around?
This was a totally different, totally different path.
Yeah, yeah. Stretching it out, trying to see how it was, and you're like, dude, screw this.
Yeah, I think that's probably, and I think a few others probably woke up sick that morning too, because maybe we had pushed it a little bit hard the day before than we should have, and so.
Hey, so are y'all camping? I mean, you're camping, so you cooking out
Yeah, so
food. I mean, this is a true camp experience.
Yeah, so they bring, we bring
burgers
food
and
out.
dogs.
Yeah, burgers and hot dogs and
chips, whatever.
All that kind of.
And you're
good
throwing
stuff.
it down, man. I don't do that as much as an adult for some reason. And it seems like people always want to go when it's summertime, and I'm just not going to go when it's. You can go in Texas. You can go in November, and it's like the perfect camp, right? But I'm not going when it's.
So it was a great example, I think, of kind of perseverance, and what I tell people is that, it's easy when you're in a group like that to get upset or to feel bad if that group breaks apart, right? And the other group is going faster and you're stuck there kind of behind.
Yeah. That's an addition to your struggles, right? Not only you didn't want to do it, it's a hard hike to begin with, and then here you are into it and you're behind everybody.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can just go back. Nobody's going to notice.
And so, but at the same time, it's, I began to think that through of like, this is how I'm experiencing this mountain.
Yeah.
Right. I want to do it this way. Why is it on, like, what gives me the right to tell them that they have to slow down and experience it the way I want to?
Right.
They want to run up the mountain, by God, run up the mountain.
Run up there.
Experience it the way you want to. And so I think that's one of the great things about nature in general is that we all kind of have that freedom to experience it the way we want to, right?
Yeah.
And so, it was great. A few of them actually, when we met up, kind of had just started their way down as I was just getting up to the top. So a couple of them turned around and went up to the top with me.
Oh, cool.
And kind of redid it again. And so that was kind of neat and fun. But
both mountains, were there any markers, any significant? Did you get pictures of anything?
Yeah, so I got pictures on both. It's kind of cool to see the horizon because you're, literally, in the air.
Well, I was thinking in Elbert, you got west of you is, California and the coast.
Yeah.
You're the highest point. I don't know if you can see that far, but that's the highest point to the East Coast. Like from here, if I look that way, there's land that'll block it, but you're literally if you the right scope, you could see both oceans from there, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't know exactly how that.
But you're super high. So the tallest mountain in the U.S. is actually in California.
Okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Mount Whitney is in California.
I was way off. So what's the one in Washington? St. Helens?
Rainier.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's not as tall as I thought.
That one's just below Elbert.
Okay.
So not by, when you're at that high, you're talking, one's 14,440 and the other one's 14,432.
Right? Yeah. What? So what was the one in California? Whitney.
Whitney.
Where's that at?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I've been through, the Yosemite where they have Half Dome. It's El Capitan.
Yep.
And something else, but of course that's just one part of. I didn't realize they had other. As big as the state is, I'm sure there's plenty of mountain ranges there.
And so
but that's the whole state. I think is like a mountain range.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
And so but it was great. It was an awesome opportunity to get to travel and experience that with some other veterans again, some folks that I've gone pretty close to.
Yeah. So how does this affect Warriors Keep? This was Warriors Keep. Warriors Keep itself is not promoted as much during this time, but this was this was your group, right?
And so I think one of the things kind of I alluded to earlier about COVID is that it's really kind of helped folks see the importance of getting outdoors. And so I think as we progress through this over the next, year, we're hopefully going to really kind of help to amplify that as an organization of, hey, these are, getting outdoors in nature is super helpful for the veteran community and kind of integrating and just getting out of the hustle and bustle, but it's good for just us in general as human beings, right?
Everybody, yeah.
You know, if you look back, 80 years or more ago, we as a human race spent the majority of our time outside.
Yep.
And it's not until recently have we really kind of confined ourselves back into an indoor world.
Yeah.
And we've started to see some of the impacts of that.
I'm going to say refrigerate. That's we refrigerate ourselves. And that's one of the like biggest, like people will spend a lot of money to secure an area that is has no wind in it except for conditioned air.
Mm-hmm.
Like I guess what I'm getting at is you buy your home, it's properly sealed, it's a good 70 degrees with the air blowing, and you walk outside and it could be 100 plus. And but having that 70 degrees, like you don't want to go anywhere else.
Right.
And it is a comfort zone. It really is. These last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been remodeling mainly painting the kitchen, but remodeling the room attached to it. And there's a window that it almost looks like 3 windows, but it was all attached. So it was basically like 10 feet long,
Mm-hmm.
and 5 feet tall, 4 feet tall, whatever. Well, so I knocked that out. So there's this big 40 square foot hole in my house, and then working on the home, right? So 2 or 3 weeks in July, I'm outside in this Texas weather when I'm used to being at Austin Insurance or in my home at 70 degrees. And every time what happened was I was so reluctant to start working because it's just so hot and it like affects, it just sucks. And then once you start sweating, it sucks for a little bit, and then the first wind breeze that comes by and cools you off, it just makes the world of difference. So a couple of those days, the wind wasn't blowing, so it never got better. Okay, then all that at the end of the day, when you're done and you go in and cool off, your body is like tired and fatigued, so you just relax so much easier. I try not to preach, but it always applies. And there's a passage in Ecclesiastes, and this is talking about living a healthy life and what's life all about. And he says, the passage is, the dreams of the laborer are sweet, for the rich are worry about all the stuff. And so that's the prime example. Like when I wasn't doing that and working like that, you always have things on your mind you're thinking about. But boy, when you go out and bust your butt all day long, laborers, the dreams of the laborer are sweet. You go home and you're out, man.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the great things is that I slept probably minus that last night, really like a lot better than normal.
Sure.
Because I was out in nature and I was kind of decompressing and didn't have cell phone signal and didn't have those kinds of normal constraints. But I'm hopeful in looking forward with the Warriors Keep, and I know they're going to keep doing more missions and more opportunities to get veterans outdoors. That they continue and we continue, because I'm kind of helping them through some of that to grow and expose that to more people. And so well, so with COVID, and I mean it's this goes back, one of the first funny memes I saw about it. Somebody goes, how many cases were of COVID today or something like that? And the guy responded, oh, I don't know. I don't follow politics, right? Like, unfortunately, it really has become a little of that, especially recently with that Breitbart video. I don't know if you saw it on Facebook, but they had 12, 13 doctors talk about the effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine. And they're talking about they use it now. And then people are saying that Facebook took it down, but I always saw it. I don't know what all that means, and I don't care. But again, Breitbart, I think, is a right-wing publication. And so now you got right and left splitting over facts of COVID.
And I'll just say my 2 cents. One, I wasn't a mask guy. I'm not going to wear, I always was like, I don't know how else to explain it. I didn't want to wear one. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and try to explain why or why not, but I didn't want to wear one, right? But I think, I've become now where if that allows me to go to the store or allows me to go be in public and have fun, I got 3 of them in my pocket, and I got a nice one in my other pocket. I mean, I got them everywhere ready to roll, right? Right. And the evidence has kind of responded, right? So as we opened back up, the cases started spiking. Of course, so did testing. So that's another. So did they increase because?
Right.
And then we started wearing masks, and that tapered off, right? And so it's this thing that's just like that. I saw the evidence prove that masks work, and if masks allow my government to open up and allow us to.
I go even, I'll in the military had a phrase where he called breaking it down Barney style, which means to the lowest level. And I kind of have the same approach with masks of, do I enjoy wearing one? No, I don't think anybody does, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anyone wakes up pre-COVID and they're like, I want to go wear a mask around, right? But I also think that while it is a inconvenience, if it is helping somebody, then then that's an inconvenience we should all be willing to take. If it is keeping you safe or me safe or somebody else safe, and it is a very minimal ask, right? Like it's not impacting you in any real significant way to wear a mask.
It was a major inconvenience in my head prior.
Right.
Now it's nothing.
Right.
Like I don't even, I just have it in my pocket and I'll put it on. So now I'm going to say crazy right wingers, whatever, but they'll say the government's got to control you by you wearing your mask. And it's like, that's not a way to control somebody. I mean, I don't get if that.
But and even, I mean, listen, the government controls us already, right? You and I are wearing pants.
Yep, you're right. Why are we wearing pants? I like pants parties. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the government tells us we have to wear certain things all the time already.
You're right. That's a good point, man. So, I'm glad you said that.
I think that if it's helping us get around this, whether there are a lot of scientists that are way smarter than me. I tend to believe that because they are smarter than me, that I'll take their advice unless there's something else that says otherwise. And, wearing a mask at the end of the day helps us reopen. They say it's keeping us safe. I have no reason to not believe it's not doing that. There's no proof otherwise. And if it does, in fact, do that, then I will gladly wear one to keep people safe.
Yeah.
So,
have you been tested?
I have not had the... I've had the antibody
test.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do not have them.
Right. So, you don't have the antibodies.
Yeah.
That's a real, if you don't mind talking about it, but that's a real interesting thing because, this can be controversial. So, but we're talking about it. So I think that's the important thing that we're talking about it. But I've taken care of myself, right? I've exercised regularly, not intensely, right? But I get my heart rate up daily. I eat above average. I think I've had the ability to not eat great because I do take care of myself. So it's kind of almost like but intermittent fasting, for example, right? Like my body uses all that it has before I start eating again, right? So whether it's good or bad, I'm saying a lot to say I'm healthy. I don't get sick. Look, I don't. I mean, I haven't been to the doctor in 6+ years. I think that's an indicator that I might be a carrier, right? But not experience the symptoms. So I do kind of feel bad. Like I don't want to be spreading my germs out because I don't feel a thing, which I think is the weirdest thing ever, right? Like the asymptomatic doesn't make sense to me. You have it, but you don't have any symptoms. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think part of it is they don't have symptoms, or the symptoms are mild, that
Very mild.
They don't recognize it, and I think that's why you see folks that are in the high risk categories, because they generally are at a higher risk for stuff because of their different immune system as opposed to a normal, typical, healthy individual. And so, but I think it all goes back to, from a military perspective, we are very used to doing things that are always greater good and above ourselves, right?
That's a good answer,
and so,
man.
If doing these kinds of, wearing a mask, social distancing, those kinds of things help that until we get to a spot where, we have a vaccine and this is not as serious, then we should all be able to do that. It's not that big of an inconvenience. And I think that, COVID has really helped us as a society kind of maybe put just some general life back into perspective.
Yeah.
And so I think you're seeing a lot of people that are suddenly realizing, I was going to the office every day, 2-hour commute, hour and a half commute. Now I'm rolling out of bed, turning on my laptop at, 7:30.
Nice.
That's
going to be one of the interesting things is office space, right?
Yeah.
Like people who are paying a lot of money for office space now are quickly realizing they don't need it as much.
Yeah.
Right?
And so, I think it's kind of reset us a little bit of, priorities. Certainly folks are realizing, and this goes back to the outdoor world, now that I'm not spending that 2 hours, hour and a half every day in a commute, I can go work out for a little bit.
Yeah.
I can go outdoors. I can go do, get a little fresh air.
Yeah, you add the to and the return.
Yeah.
That adds up to a lot.
And so I can go do these things and I'm still being as productive, if not more productive, in what I, do for a living. And so if all of that is still the case, then maybe, this is kind of society's, the world's way of kind of self-correcting us a little bit.
Sure. And so COVID technically has not affected Warriors Keep, except for the, maybe the fundraising aspect.
Yeah, well, I mean, so it certainly affected like our ability to travel. Internationally.
To do the actual hikes.
Right. But I think it just gave us a different perspective of, do we need to travel across the world to go do a mountain?
Yeah.
That's great. I think we're all, it's still on every one of our bucket lists to go.
But there's a lot of badass mountains.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff here in this country that we can go do, right? There's a lot of, one of my latest passions is what I consider urban hiking, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to, Grand Prairie's got some great parks. We've got great parks all over the Metroplex. Really getting folks out to go see those.
Yeah.
You don't have to go fly to Colorado. You don't have to go fly across the world to go get a good hike in.
Yeah. Comparably, when you're in your house or in your car, the park next door is outdoors.
Right.
And it really is the greens and the water and the creek and all that's right there. I mean, it is right here.
And so you can go do all of that stuff still, and then and get some of that same benefit that you would if you had traveled, across the world.
So what do you know about international travel though? I mean, from Kilimanjaro and currently, like, I'm itching, especially because of this, to go do some immersion trips. And my concern is the travel aspect, and I don't know how they react, right? Like,
sure,
they don't have a lot of people. Other countries don't have a lot of tourists showing up.
Correct.
Especially American tourists. And when I show up, are they going to be like, get away from me? Or are they going to, you know what I mean?
Are you going to be a target for kidnapping? I mean, all of those kinds of things are, kind of what weighed into our mind to not travel. And so I think, the international travel market, I'm certainly no expert, but I think it's going to take a little while to rebound
to comfortably travel.
Yeah. because you just don't know. I mean, in we're still, like I said, we're in the middle of this, pandemic. There's not a vaccine yet, so we still don't know, if you or I are carriers or not.
Yeah.
And do we want to travel, and further spread if I go to Europe?
Yeah.
Or if I catch it there and then come back, did we just kick this can again? So
well, and that's where I'm at. I'm like, we're wearing masks. Masks are proved to be effective. I mean, if that's the case, why don't we go back to quarantine? I feel like that's and I'm just talking here, but I feel like that's my trigger to be okay to wear a mask. Yeah, okay, let's wear a mask, but we should go back to everything. I say everything, but back to normal, right? I mean, we should be able to go everywhere and do anything if masks work, right? Now, I understand they're not 100% effective, and I'm not arguing that, but like, if we're going to mandate masks, I should be able to. And I guess in the U.S. you can, and we can only worry about what's going on here in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it just takes, it's there are certain things that I think are still high risk, right? And so while wearing a mask, I think is helpful and does work, we're also, not necessarily in the same next to each other, standing in line for hours, right?
Sure,
and so you're going in and out of a Walmart, you're going in and out of a store. Sure, you're passing people, but you're not standing next to them as if you were like at a Rangers baseball game or something for a long period of time.
3.5 hours.
Yeah. And so I
talking
think
and spewing your junk everywhere.
Yeah, and then and then you're interacting with a whole lot of people, and then coming back to your seat, and then so I think there's a little bit of some different dynamics there, but I think we're slowly starting to open some of these things back up. Basketball has been pretty good. They so far, knock on wood, they haven't had a huge outbreak. The bubble seems to be working for them, right?
And this is like baseball, no fans, right?
Right.
That's crazy.
But they're in a bubble, so they're not like, I guess baseball didn't institute the bubble.
What's the bubble? I don't get that.
So, like my understanding is that the NBA players can't go out, like they're basically self-quarantined all in the same spot.
And this is throughout the season.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so they're not like, going out to, restaurants and stuff. They're in the hotel and they're going to play the season, and that's where they're going to stay.
You can't have a social life as an NBA player.
Right. And versus baseball where they're not doing that. And so I think that's why you've seen a little bit of the different kind of
interesting
reactions. I think, it's good that we're seeing both sides of that. I think it's, the NBA is doing what they think is right. The MLB is doing what they think is right.
Yeah.
And I think the NFL is ultimately going to be the one that profits the most out of this, because they're going to see both examples and go,
we see what's best.
Yeah, we like that model better.
Yeah. And so they won't have the fans, but they've always had the TV.
Yeah. I mean, so I don't know if the NFL has announced how they're going to do that yet. And I think they're still,
I feel like,
very much leaving it up to the states.
It's strange to me because you can socially distance at stadiums. I mean, instead of 40,000, you have 20,000, right?
Sure.
And maybe it's even less than that. But at some point, maybe it's not worth it to open up. I don't know, but I'm curious why they haven't even had fans.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it depends on the size of the stadium for sure.
And you have a week to prepare for it, whereas NBA and MLB, it's every day, right? So
yeah.
I feel like NFL would have a lot better chance actually getting folks in there.
But then they run into the gambit of, okay, so if you're only 1/4 of a way filling a stadium, right? Let's just use that as an example. How do you pick who gets tickets?
Yep.
And 2, did you just 4x the price of the ticket? Because it's that much more of a commodity to go see.
Seems like NFL, you might be able to. Right?
You probably would.
Just with the people who.
And so, I think that it's been a little bit of a challenge. I think, COVID has kind of taught us a lot personally about society and where we're going. It's restructured kind of what we all deem as important a little bit, which has been super great. And, from an outdoor perspective, which is what I love, it's really kind of put a new spotlight on the getting outdoors and that kind of thing for our communities.
Yeah, and I'm glad people are doing it. So what's next?
That's a great question. So I don't have any mountains on my calendar now.
Yeah.
I candidly would tell you I got off the last one. I'm like, I'm never doing that again. And then a week later, I was like, if somebody wanted to go, I'd probably go.
Yeah. Well, I've got my deer lease is in hill country, so these aren't mountains by any way, shape, or form. But my entire life, I've driven the hills. We have roads and usually off-road vehicles or four-wheel drive vehicles. My four-wheel drive vehicle that's down there's transmission's bad. And I've done this before, and then my pickup is actual four-wheel drive, but with the brush, and it's not built. I'm not doing that. And saying this now, I'm thinking about it might actually be fun to try it, but it's not built to do that anyway. So I'm going to park and hike my hills. So I'll keep you in the loop. It's about a 3-hour drive. We could do it in a day. And if we really wanted to, we could hang out and pig hunt or something as well. So keep that in mind.
I will. Yeah,
I'll keep you updated. I know it's tough to get away like that, but it's hill country.
Yeah, we have we have a ton of guys that do that. I'd certainly love to, do the hiking kind of hunt combo. And in fact, I'll tell you this, when we were on the mountain in Elbert, a large group of the people that I met up there were all training for hunting season.
Okay,
so they're all from the Montanas of the world where it's much more of a stock kind of hunt.
Sure.
And so they're training, carrying stuff as if they were going on a stock hunt.
Yeah, that's like Joe Rogan talks about that a lot, like an elk hunt up there.
Yeah.
Where they hike into the mountains, hunt, and they field dress and clean it and hike and bring the meat out.
And so there was a lot, I would probably say, a decent percentage of the folks that I met climbing up Elbert, that's what they were training. Like, this was their training to go do that during the season.
I think it'd be fun to get to that point. I'm not there. But this is like nice cabin.
Sure.
The feeders are set up. I spend time and effort making it.
Right.
And you got to practice with a gun. And and I got a bow as well. But, we have a cooler. You can put it in your truck.
Yeah.
And, I'm sorry, you have a cooler for the animal. Mm-hmm. So, you don't have to do something with it immediately.
Right.
Field dress it, put it hanging up in the cooler. You can hang out the weekend and do something with the animal later or whatever. And then the air-conditioned cabin. So,
but so to answer your question, nothing's on the calendar yet, but I am starting to actively put together the list for 2021.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
And so...
And is that list like a 3-hike list, or does it matter, is it...
so I think I got a group of... I have a group of friends that are non-military connected that have kind of watched me go through all this camping stuff, and they've quickly been like, so when are you taking us camping?
Yeah.
When are you leaving?
Don't exclude us non-military guys.
Yeah,
we want to go too.
When are we going? And so we're actually working on a trip. We're going to go do Paladero Canyon near Lubbock in November. So
tell them $500 donation to Warriors Keep. You're in.
I'll lead the hike. But so we got that, and then I think I want to go do Pikes Peak in Colorado's on my list.
I've heard of Pikes Peak.
I want to go do. When you start getting really into it, some of the mountains you have to apply to get a permit to go up.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's not like you just show up and hike it. You have to.
I think it's the Appalachian Mountains have some pretty good hiking. And so, we went to North Carolina in Asheville and did a hike outside of Asheville. It was really fun.
And so I think we're going to, I'm going to put together kind of a list of stuff. I think, I know Warriors Keep's going to do some Colorado mountains coming up, and
man, I had a girlfriend that in college that judged my hikes by the altitude. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's great, right? The highest peak, right? That's so cool. But I mean, there's so many that aren't the highest.
Sure.
That are amazing hikes and amazing territory and lands and
absolutely
just as challenging, and that makes you even more like influenced, right? It's a better overall experience than just saying I'd hike the highest one. Now that's an amazing thing in itself. I'm not saying don't hike the highest one, but there's plenty.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it has to be, and this is what I would say about like Elbert versus some others. I wouldn't take the group of people that I'm going to go do Palo Duro with to go do Elbert.
Really?
Without us having some serious kind of training in place, right? Like
so Palo Duro is more intense, you think?
No, it's less intense.
Less intense?
Less intense.
Okay.
I would take somebody that perhaps hasn't trained as much to go do like a Guadalupe Peak, which is not that high.
Yeah.
You're getting a little elevation, but not a lot versus, something that's 10,000, 13,000, 14. I mean, when you start getting into that realm,
you're starting off short of breath.
right. And so, but it is a great testament to you learn a lot about people,
Yeah.
Are they the kind of person that's going to, okay, this is hard. I quit. I'm ready to go home.
Yeah.
Similar to how I woke up that morning, right? Or they the kind of person that's gonna be like, okay, well, I don't feel good, but by God, I'm going.
Yep.
And I don't care if it takes me till 8:00 at night. We're gonna get to the top and we're gonna get back down. And so you kind of learn, that about people, and it instills that, once you. A lot of people might not even know when they start that hike, do they have that in them, right? Yeah. And then you get up there and you're like, man, that was 10 times during that hike I thought about turning around.
Yeah.
But I didn't, and now I'm here.
Ooh, it feels so good.
So then when you come
so
home.
So rewarding.
Yeah, you come home and you're back in life, you draw on that experience of like, man, I really don't want to go do this work thing.
Yeah.
But then you remember, I really didn't want to go climb that mountain, and I did that.
And it worked out.
Yeah.
Matt, I love what you're doing, man, particularly for Warriors Keep and, keeping our veterans healthy, but also for anybody else, like you said, just the guy going to work that needs motivation just to go to work and provide for the families and such. So thanks for doing all that. Keep me updated. I'll follow up. Why don't you give a little contact information and we'll give a heart out here.
Yeah, so, my personal contact information, you can follow me at Matt M. Foster.
Instagram, right?
Instagram or Twitter. At The Warriors Keep is Instagram.
Excellent.
All on Facebook and every other social media of the world. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for coming by, man.
You bet. I appreciate it.
I'll see you.
Thanks, man.
Cool, buddy.
Awesome.
We did a little over an hour. Thanks for listening to the HotnCole podcast. Please like, comment, and subscribe where appropriate. Please visit the website as well, www.hotncole.com.